everybody, this is Carl back again for this week's movie review. And today I'll be covering, well, at least don't know how many movies it's going to be, but this is the third of the Agatha Christie based films directed by Kenneth Branagh, A Haunting in Venice. Now, I've covered since I started, reviewing movies and shows. I started one of the earliest ones being the second film, Death on the Nile. But eventually I got to Murder on the Orient Express and reviewed that, both of which are on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Links in the description below. And now I'm covering the third film of this trilogy, A Haunting in Venice. Now, I love a good murder mystery, especially if it's done well. I've got at least one or two of the Agatha Christie stories on my Audible, but it's just like really good. Like, I just love a good murder mystery. And Kenneth Branagh really, got a niche in this market. It's like, whomever is doing like the Knives Out films, like I know his name, Ryan Johnson. Ryan Johnson and Kenneth Branagh are really carving out their own little path in Hollywood when it comes to making murder mysteries, both of which are very good. And I've covered Glass Onion because I watched that at least 4 or 5 times because it's so good. I don't recall if I reviewed Knives Out. Let me double check. I pretty sure I did, because if I didn't, I'm pretty sure I should. Let me do like a quick little search here, because I hate the idea of like doing one that already did it. Yeah, I did do Knives Out. It was 2 years ago, around November. So definitely check that out when you guys get the chance. So I covered all the well, at least the first 2 Kenneth Branagh films, which I keep forgetting that he directed the first Thor film. And maybe we didn't appreciate it at that time, but I'm thinking like after the whole situation with it's not like a bad situation, but it's just like an issue that some people have with Taika Waititi when it comes to directing Thor films, because the first 2 Thor films didn't do so hot. Now, I give a little bit more leeway with the first one than I do with the second one. But Kenneth Branagh obviously probably did better research than Taika Waititi did, because Taika Waititi doesn't, feel like he should, or he found like the Thor comics boring. I was like, how many did you actually read? Sure, maybe like some of the older stories back in like maybe like the 80s or the early parts of the 90s weren't all that thrilling. It wasn't really a good time for Marvel Comics at that time. So, I'm pretty sure, when was like the Marvel Civil War comic event? Sometime after that, I'm starting to feel that's where Thor stories was starting to get a better fair shot. slowly but surely getting like progressively better. Uh, but it wasn't until, at least in my opinion, because I think it started when like Asgard had to move its area to Earth in that uh, desert area or something, New Asgard kind of situation, and then going on from that, the next time like I read a good Thor story was when he was dealing with Gore the God Butcher. But in between that time, I'm pretty sure people can find like a probably like a solid Thor story. But I don't know. I think people was turned off by Kenneth Branagh's uh, adaptation because to be fair to him, Thor seems like like a almost like a stage play, like a Shakespearean stage play, and that's where he leaned into. Wasn't a terrible idea. It just some people it was, I won't say put off by it, but it didn't jive well with some people. So eventually, after the poor received Thor 2, Taika Waititi came in, knocked out of the park with Ragnarok, but he leaned too far into the comedy in the fourth film, where he just like all the major stuff that we was looking forward to, got lost in the weeds a bit. And so I think people like, okay, just keep Taika Waititi off of this because clearly he doesn't care. And even Chris Hemsworth mentioned like they spend most of the time just having fun with certain things instead of actually like getting to the nitty gritty of the filmmaking part, which not necessarily a bad thing, but you got to balance it out because you're there to work too, Anyway, so like I think because Kenneth Branagh in this film, A Haunting in Venice, I think after somebody pointed out, I think it was Honest Trailers, like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, they pointed out something I didn't notice before, but now every time I see a Kenneth Branagh production, I can't help but see tilted camera shots. And every director has their own little thing. And, just like with Tim Burton with the gothic stuff and using Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter in a lot of his stuff. Or like Michael Bay with the explosions. Every director almost got their thing. Quentin Tarantino, feet. It's like, for Kenneth Branagh, it's the tilted camera shots. Oh, and then J.J. Abrams with the lens flares. And like, each director has their weird gimmick, And personally, I think like the whole feet thing with Quentin Tarantino is probably like the one that kind of puts me off a little bit most because like clearly is a fetish and everybody knows it. It's like everybody knows but don't want to bring it up. It's like just let it be because it's not hurt nobody kind of thing. But it's like, okay, dude, let's just say what we all thinking. Just make movie solely about feet. Like making an animated project, call it Souls or something. Like just do it. We already know what you're into. You're not very subtle about it at all. But whatever. Anyway, so now, Death Row Now, while it did okay, despite the whole COVID pandemic situation, because it was just coming out of the lockdown situation when it, because I went to see it in the theaters, because I really wanted to get out, and we was finally being let out of the whole lockdown situation. So and theaters was just opening, like slowly but surely starting to open. So like I wanted to go out, and I went out to go see Death on the Nile, and I enjoyed Murder on the Orient Express a little bit more. Even though, like with a good murder mystery, you got to get like some cool cast members, and that's half of the fun, in my opinion. Even though in Glass Onion, I saw like Catherine Hahn was casted, and it was right off the heels of the success of WandaVision and her, Agatha Harkness character, which very recently the Agatha Harkness show is on Disney Plus right now. They kind of riding high on Catherine Hahn's bump in success, and it's like I honestly say it's like oh, she clearly did it because like she been playing the villain in WandaVision, so like clearly Ryan Johnson hired her to obviously be the villain in this. But if you've seen Glass Onion, that wasn't the case. But anyway, so now we're into A Haunting in Venice, and it stars Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot, which I really want to see somebody do some kind of video. I'm pretty sure somebody had to already, between Hercule Poirot and Benoit Blanc. Which one of these two are the better detectives? Because these two, like, their popularity in terms of murder mysteries in the past handful of years, they are the main two. And I'm curious to see like which one would be the best. Now, slightly unfair because Bryan Johnson hasn't made a third Knives Out film yet. I'm pretty sure he's planning to at some point. Anyway, we got Kyle Allen as Maxime Gerard, Camille Cotton as Olga Semenoff, Jamie Dornan as Dr. Leslie Ferrer, Tina Fey as Ari Dene Oliver, Jude Hill as Leopold Ferrer, the son of the doctor, Ali Khan as Nicholas Holland, Emma Lard as Desdemona Holland, the sister to Nicholas, Kelly Riley as Warina Drake, Ricardo Sacramercio as Vitaly Portfoglio, and of course Michelle Yeoh as Joyce Reynolds. And I gotta say, this is a star-studded cast, but Kenneth Branagh and Michelle Yeoh personally were the highlights for me, but we'll get further into it in a minute. So this is not too long after the Second World War had ended. Now, through these three Agatha Christie adapted films, we understand the time passes. In the second film, they touch on Hercule was part of WW1 in his younger years, which explains why he has a scar on his lip, which he covers up with a massive mustache. But the first film, the First World War has long since passed. But in the third film, they it's like at least a few years, at least a year or two, maybe, when the Second World War has long since been over and the Allies won. So now it's pretty much people trying to continue on with their lives. There's quite a few characters here that's still suffering from the effects of the war, which is cool. When I rewatched this, I enjoyed the fact that we get to see something that we don't really see all that often in certain films, as based not too long after the Second World War had ended, where we see like the aftermath effects for certain people. Even though we don't get to see the war, we get to hear about it and the ramifications. Not, I wouldn't say no film has done it, but it's just like something I glom onto with the doctor who had, served in the in the war. So he's clearly going through like PTSD, and it's kind of like messing up his capabilities of performing his duties as a physician. Anyway, Hercule Poirot has long since retired. He lost faith in people, God. He just, he got his own little bodyguard in, what's his name? Vatele. Trying to keep like the rabble rousers from trying to knock on his door asking for his help, because he was a critically acclaimed detective that solves all these crazy mysteries and crimes that the police normally cannot solve on their own. Then he gets a knock on the door from Adrine, or Ariadne, who is a famous author who was, we get a nice little backstory here, who was responsible for putting Hercule's name out there in the world for people just to know off rip, because of one of her first books that she based the story around Hercule's earliest mysteries that's supposedly like unsolvable until he solved it and he became like world famous. Matter of fact, it would be an awesome kind of, I'm not much of a prequel fan, but it would be a cool movie where we see Hercule's first mystery that he solves with Adrine, or I was gonna call her Andrea. It's these Italian names kind of throw me off, even though she's not Italian. I was gonna call her Andrea. Andrea, was like an up and coming writer, and she got famous off of him, and started writing all these mystery novels since then after. So these two end up becoming friends. She knocks on his door, telling him about this mystery that occurred at this palazzo, and she needs his help in order to figure out if this is all a sham or is like the real deal, because there's some kind of supernatural thing going on where this is supposed to be some kind of seance happening, and this is one of the earliest days of Halloween being brought into the world, thanks via like America. It's like really made like a impact in terms of a major holiday. And so people out on the streets are celebrating. And I like the cinematography and the costume design is incredible, because you feel like you're in the particular time period. Because I've seen like, history documentaries and stuff like on the History Channel when I was growing up, of the origin of like Halloween and how it made an impact in the world over the years. And around this era, kids wearing certain costumes that seem like very paper mache, and kind of like like very operatic kind of costumes. And it's like, this is like very spot on from what I've seen, like historical videos and stuff like that. And God, the tilted camera stuff is like, but I think it kind of works here because you're in a very confined space. And I'm not just talking about the location where the murder mystery will happen, because that's part of the fun with the murder mystery is that you're confined and you don't get any outside help for like a day or something like that, while the main detective is trying to solve the mystery. So nobody can get out, nobody can get in. But here, what's keeping them confined in the building where the murder happened is like a massive rainstorm happening outside. That will happen later on. But also, when you do see what's happening outside, because it's Italy and those narrow passageways, you feel so confined, and all too often you seem like maybe tilted, and the camera kind of works, with this. Because previous films, it's like, doesn't really need to have any tilting shots, honestly. But anyway, Hercule is hesitant because he's like I'm done with this. I seen too much death, and that's why he lost faith in humanity, because it's like he sees too many times people killing another person over the most frivolous things imaginable sometimes. And the callousness of human behavior and things of that sort, he just was done with all of it. Matter of fact, in the previous film, I'm surprised he didn't carry on a relationship with the woman at that nightclub. It's kind of weird. But he did mention in the previous film, like, what he wanted to do when he, retires is like, make his own garden and grow his own eggs, because he still does this little thing where he has eggs, measured so they can be perfectly perfectly sized or whatever. I'm glad they keep that gimmick going, because that's kind of like his thing. He wants perfectly sized eggs, and everything's just like perfect, because he's got good attention to detail, which I guess is like a blessing and a curse with a lot of like genius detectives. They got to have some kind of quirk about them, and that seems not right in the head, where they, that TV show on USA back in the day, Monk, where he's like a, OCD, or really OCD, but it's also helps him, focus and help solve crimes. Or like the TV show Psych, where the guy is kind of childish, but he has, he's super observant, but he plays it off like he's psychic. So I kind of liked it, like, or at least with like somebody like in Glass Onion. I keep blanking on his doggone name. Benoit Blanc. He's just like, with the whole Southern drawl thing, and he's too antsy. He can't, sit anywhere. He got to keep his mind busy, and he always wants a new case, because he loves the thrill of, solving a seemingly unsolvable, case. A detective like that has to have a gimmick. It kind of makes them more appealing, and us feeling so drawn to them. That is like almost a must in these kind of things. You can't have no regular smuggler detective, solving cases without something to make them separate from any normal cop. They have to have a thing. It doesn't necessarily need to be Batman, but they got to have some kind of gimmick about them. But thanks to more prodding, Hercule agrees to attend this seance to see if this supposed medium that's supposed to be coming in to commune with a young girl who died, and the mother was hosting some type of Halloween party earlier that day. But people getting these invitations who knew the dead person, and they all commune together. And so we get a little bit of backstory about the location where it used to be an orphanage where, kids were being tended to. But around that time, there was like a plague situation happening. The doctors and nurses end up locking the kids inside, which caused them to eventually die, and it becomes like a well-known haunted house, essentially, where anybody who has some kind of, you know, nurse or doctoral background gets tormented. So, uh, Joyce, played by Michelle Yeoh, who, once again, one of the best parts in this film, honestly. Like, her acting is just insane. She is so good. So, and she playing up the part very well. It's just like, because you see, like, certain movies when they have like a medium, he's all mysterious and, you know, uh, not necessarily nonchalant, but just like, it's like, barely have any emotion about their face. They're just like, super calm. Like they already know the situation they're in, but they haven't articulated yet. She seemingly knows stuff about like the dead person's little doll and knows what she called it, Baba or something like that. And then during the seance, she's literally in the center what like all the other adult guests that was invited to this thing. When all the party is over and people who weren't invited to the seance part all go home before it really starts to rain. So it's the main characters, and they all sitting in this circle while Hercule is standing on the outside trying to observe everything. Joyce is sitting in the center as he's swerving around, seemingly possessed by the daughter of Rowena, and screaming about murder, meaning that somebody in this room had murdered her. And then everything starts like doors seem to be flying open and things are knocking over, completely unexplained. And Joyce seemingly speaks in the same voice as the dead daughter. Later on, Hercule confronts Joyce about the whole situation, doesn't believe in any of this stuff, but he intends to solve it because he seems like there's always like a scientific explanation to all this kind of stuff. He doesn't believe in like the afterlife or any of that sort. And then Joyce seemingly kind of drops the medium act a little bit because Michelle Yeoh was like, she's like flipping a switch and she's kind of like playful about it with him, but she then puts on her like costume onto him and tells him to lighten up, and she says to him like, we won't be seeing each other again, and then walks off. And this part is very weird to me. I'll get further detail about it a little bit later, but he decides to keep on the costume, and because Joyce tells him that he needs to like lighten up a bit. So he goes walking around like these empty rooms until he goes into the room where the kids was partying at and bobbing for apples. So he starts bobbing for one of the apples, and it's like, if you're in like amidst a party setting and it's part of the game with other people and you're supposed to bob for apples, yeah, I can see why you would do this, but nobody's here. If you want an apple, just reach your hand in there and grab an apple. He actually maybe he's trying to embrace his inner child or something, maybe, and tries to, get the stick out of his butt, maybe. I don't know. It just seems kind of like a decision that he didn't need to do, or it shouldn't have been written to do. But as he was bobbing it for one of the apples, which, by the way, probably filled with a lot of saliva from many kids. If you think about it, bobbing for apples seems kind of gross. Because I know I bobbed for apples one time when I was like a very, very, very young kid. One of the rare earliest memories I have was bobbing for an apple and stuff. And I could not do it because my tiny little teeth or something like that couldn't really like hinge on one of those things. That is like that's what I can. It's one of like the. It's kind of weird how your brain works. It's literally one of the earliest memories that I can recall. It's like at least the second earliest memories I can ever recall in my mind if I reach back farther enough. And which earliest memory stuck to me that I can pull from. The first one being like when I was like, I'm pretty sure I was like a baby and like I was crawling underneath my grandparents. It was in the dining room. I was crawling underneath the dining room table, and outside it was daylight. I can remember seeing the sun, pouring through the window. And then the second memory is me like trying to bob for an apple or something like that. And I'm assuming it was Halloween because people was like, dressed up in weird clothes or something like that. And I think somebody was dressed as like a clown or something like that. But yeah, those are probably like my earliest memories that I remember, like, that I can reach in for. Because, because when you're a baby, you don't remember much. But those are two earliest memories I know. Anyway, I got off of a tangent. So Hercule nearly drowns when somebody tried to dunk his head into the container. But he's found by his bodyguard. And then they heard a scream, and then Joyce falls off an upper story area, lands on a statue with his hand pointing straight up like this, and she gets impaled. And Andrea finds her and starts screaming. Everybody rushes in and see this horrific scene. And this is where I personally cry foul, because how far did she fall? Because we'll see like the moment what led up to the death at the end of the film, but the height doesn't align well with how the impact should have occurred. At the height, yeah, sure, like Michelle Yeoh's a thin woman. Plus, yes, she is an older woman at that. However, she's not frail. If it was like a frail old woman like the woman in the Titanic, yeah, I could probably see this being feasible. But it's like she got impacted by a sword. And it's just like, if it was like a statue holding like a sword made of of marble or something like that, yeah, I can see, because there's like a pointy thing with edges on it. Now the statue, upon looking at it, doesn't even look like it has like long nails at all. It's just like fingers. And the impact of something like that would have just at the most maybe broken her spine at most. If you, so far as like severe damage at the highest, but not enough to cause impaling, because there's no pointy edges to it. It's just like, I don't know, it just seems like improbable there will be like a clean impale. Because if it was, because like I said, the height that does play a factor in it, but it has to be the place has to be a little higher than that to warrant an impaling on an object like that. It had to be at least 5 more stories up. I'm not no expert or nothing like that, but from the stuff that I've seen and like like Delia's Word, where they utilize test dummies and gel torsos and pig flesh, utilizing all these different types of weapons, and see what happens to the body when coming in contact with a certain force. Using that kind of mindset, I can just at least ascertain, okay, this shouldn't cause at least that. It would cause damage, but not death, unless there's like another height factor to it. It has to be maybe at least a few more stories from the height of this place. It has to be 3 stories from where the statue was at max. But I don't know. It just seems like I don't know. I just something I just noticed. Like, man, that should not cause that damage. So now there's an actual death on their hands. So Hercule has to step up because the policia can't get to them because the phones are out. At least so far as calling out the building, they can still call each other within the building. And the storm is kind of keeping people from coming in to help. So it's up to Hercule to find out who the killer is before they kill again. So Hercule starts to question people. And in the middle of questioning everybody, he's starting, get hallucinations, and he's starting hearing things, even to the point where he's starting to see the little girl who supposedly had died and she keep disappearing and everything like that. Now he feels like he's kind of losing it a bit. Even Andrea's starting to notice something's wrong with him because he's so articulate. He's never one to mince words. So when he starts to like forget certain words or stumbling over his sentences here and there, she's starting to like, okay, like what's going on with you? Like you're not behaving like yourself. So she's starting to assume this place is like having an effect on him. So this, has to be something supernatural. We even seen like the little boy. It's like he's one of like, if I say like another good character here is the young kid, because sure he doesn't talk like a normal young kid. He's very astute. But I can just tell, given the situation with his father and the aftermath of the war, and I'm assuming the mother had passed, so he's primarily the one looking after his dad. They love each other, but you see his dad going through stuff. He's like his father's anchor, and he knows it, and he's like, he probably has to grow up pretty fast, where Hercule points out the fact that he's reading Edgar Allan Poe stories instead of something a little bit more appropriate for his age. It's little details like that shows like this kid, doesn't want to, even though it will be age appropriate, that he should be out there having fun, making friends, but he spent most of his time, looking at his father. Like he doesn't want to mess around with kid stuff. He needs to essentially he has to grow up faster than normally he should be doing. So the kid plays it well. He's not like, annoying or dweebish or any of that sort. He's still somewhat of a normal kid, but a kid who obviously had to grow up fast in order to make sure he looks after his dad, because his dad is not well, and he wants to be that emotional rock for him because his father doesn't have nobody else. And which is sad in and of itself. Like I said, it goes to show the ramifications of the fallout from the Second World War and how it affects, people, maybe not physically, but mentally as well. And the effects it has on, by extension, their families. And it comes to a certain point where now Hercule is also questioning Andrea and his bodyguard, which, Andrea is kind of insulted a bit because she's the one who invited him. I was like, you know, like, how dare you suspect me? I'm your friend. I was the one who brought you here. And Hercule just snaps back like, every person, uh, every murderer is somebody's best friend, which is kind of true. And it's like, that doesn't, because everybody's a suspect until they're not, until like the real killer is found. And yeah, that's, in the rule book of every law enforcement around the world. It's like, if there's an investigation going on, everybody's who was there in the time of the murder is a potential suspect, or anybody who might be connected to in some kind of way, regardless of friendship or family members. They have to be a suspect until they can be ruled out. It's just the way it is. But then he points out that the medium was hired by the bodyguard and Andrea, because the bodyguard used to be a cop, and one of his cases was pulling Rowena's daughter's body out of the water when she seemingly drowned. And after that situation, he ended up quitting the police force, and then he lied on his background a little bit, and then got hired on just as a personal bodyguard. He connected with Andreas at some point, and got in cahoots in trying to get Hercule involved in this particular situation. So they, because Andrea she's struggling trying to find, like, she got writer's block. She trying to find like a good new story, and she's kind of running out of ideas. So she figures like, well, I can just go to the guy who started my career in the first place and hopefully get him involved in a particular case that's seemingly unsolvable, so I can drum up a good story plot for her next book. And Hercule figured that out, because we see that she and the bodyguard orchestrated getting the medium involved, give her info about Hercule and a lot of other people. And Joyce's assistants, this brother and sister duel, all of them assisted in making things fall down, typewriter, activating and doors flying open. They orchestrate a lot of that stuff to make it seem like some ghostly apparition is trying to invade the room. But eventually they discovered the body of the doctor, who we'll find out later he misdiagnosed the body of the daughter a long time ago. Find his dead body in a room where he was supposedly secluded after he had like a mental breakdown and attacked Maxime, who used to be a boyfriend of the deceased daughter, but had like a falling out because the daughter was so concerned about the mom, and the mom is pretty much very like overbearing and very clingy to the daughter and never approved of anybody she got involved with. But it kind of guilt tripped the daughter in order to stay with her, and it kind of shattered the relationship these two had, was forced him to just try to move on. He's like a renowned chef, and married into like a rich family. And so he's carrying on, which I didn't care for, where it's like he's, at first we meet him, he's carrying on like a prick. Like, yeah, like, I married money, good money too. And it's like kind of like very smug about it. But we later on see how much in love he was with that girl. and how distraught he was when he found out that she passed. So it's just, I don't know. Don't know why he needed to pretend like he was like always in it for the money kind of attitude. But I guess people close to his former girlfriend labeled him such. He just kind of like, well, I got sick of trying to convince them, so I'm just going to embrace it kind of thing. But I didn't really care for that personally. Um, but uh, Hercule eventually found the clues. He put everything together, and it turns out the mom is the one who caused the death of her own daughter. Like earlier, uh, uh, while questioning her, they walked through her garden that she planted a long time ago, where she uh, uh, also bee keeps, and she harvests the honey that she used in a lot of her teas from the nectar of these flowers that she planted. And these flowers, or at least the honey is called mad honey, derived from the rhododendron pointium, or pointicum, and is it is intoxicating, but in high doses will cause like death. Turns out the daughter was perfectly fine until she started to, because the whole rumor about her having hallucinations and things of that sort is because the mom, providing this tea with this mad honey inside, causing her deterioration. And at one point it got so bad while the mom was trying to rest, and the housemaid saw that the daughter wasn't feeling well. She doesn't know what to do, so she just went with what the mom was doing previously and just copied that, but didn't realize she was overdoing it a bit with the honey. Thought it was normal honey, which caused the death. And the mom, realizing that, well, there's going to be like an autopsy, and she doesn't want anybody to figure out about the whole mad honey situation. So she, knowing that this house had a reputation from the whole ghost stories and everything like that, she make it seem like, oh, the daughter's been attacked by seemingly spirits with certain mysterious marks on them, on the daughter. Then puts the daughter into outside the balcony into the river, where all this started. And realizing, because sometime later she realized she's starting to get blackmailed. She doesn't know who. That's where she decided to do the seance thing, because she's trying to suss out who could it be so she can get rid of him. So she orchestrated the death of the doctor, the kid's father, utilizing one of the phones and disguising. Well, she didn't disguise the voice. She called him up and threatened the son if he doesn't like off himself. So he's the one that self-inflicted his own death, in order to make sure he's safe, make sure his son is safe. And then she caused the death of the medium because she didn't want this person to figure out, potentially that she was the one that caused the death. So she, made sure she murdered the medium. Now, going back to when the medium says like, we won't see each other again, I'm torn between whether or not that she foresaw that, like, because she don't see like the future past a certain point. Maybe because she thought he would die, or because it turns out it was her death. That's why she couldn't see beyond a certain point, realizing that, well, we won't see each other again. Hercule deduced that because Joyce put on her robe onto him with the mask that she was wearing earlier, the mom assumed that she was trying to drown the medium, but stopped when she realized, oh, that was Hercule this whole time. So she was trying to cover her tracks while sussing out any potential blackmailers, which turns out to be Leopold, because he, being the son of the doctor, he was the one that kind of picked out what his father missed earlier about the, because he was the one who was like checking up on the daughter while she was alive, but didn't realize the intoxication and all this other stuff, missing certain key details. And the son kind of picked him up and then decides, okay, we can blackmail this woman so that way we can sustain ourselves, because the father clearly isn't effective to work or practice properly given his mental disorder, at least from the effects of the war. So he was the one that orchestrated that situation, which was the root cause of forcing the mom's hand into doing this whole seance and Halloween party situation, just to get people, at least the key people here, so she can suss them out. All but the ex-boyfriend, he got his invitation from Andrea, because she to spice things up a bit. My thing is, why would you do the stupid thing of walking a well-known detective, or famous detective, through the garden with, it's pretty much walking in like, here's my gallery of evidence here, or like, here's clearly the murder weapon, walk right through it. And it's like, of course he would have picked up on that quickly. Why would you? And furthermore, you shouldn't even invite anybody first and foremost, because you're just like a medium, a well-known detective. Two, if you count the bodyguard that was previously involved. And why would you not suspect he might spill the beans eventually? It's just like the whole entire situation. Criminals can be dumb sometimes. You shouldn't even orchestrate all this, because you're just asking for one of these people to bust you. But she ended up running away. Hercule chased her down through one of the corridors until they got into the room where the daughter was, in the balcony area, because the mom was just obsessed with being around the daughter. She had nobody but this daughter. That was pretty much made the daughter her whole life, and to the point of obsession where she couldn't even have a normal life outside of her. And the daughter, who loved her mom, ended up disrupting her own happiness with this man in favor of the mom, and which caused that friction. So Hercule chases her to the balcony, where he sees the ghost of the daughter drag. It was like a quick flash, but drag the mom over the balcony and falls to her death into the river. As we see her again the corpse getting dragged further in the depths of the dark waters. And the movie ends with Hercule parting ways with Andrea and the bodyguard, going back to his home. Oh, the assistants of Joyce, get help by Leopold and the houseman who's looking after Leopold now, and to help the citizens find a way to Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, and America. And it's like, you want to leave to go to America around this time? It's like, yeah, I know it's after the war, but America has their, its issues around this time, especially, because getting to the 50s and then eventually the 60s, and it's gonna be a rough time in America for at least quite a bit, and at least well, buckle up, kid, because by the time you're in your 20s, it'll be hitting the Vietnam era, and you'll probably get drafted. So it's gonna, America's gonna have a little, rough time until you get into like the latter of the 70s. I was like, and that's when we get like a little bit of a tonal shift. But then there's the 80s with like the whole, spy organizations between Russia and America, and then Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah, I mean, like, we only get like a brief respite, after World War II, until we get into the whole civil rights era, get into like the 80s a little bit. And it's like, at least, between like 1955 until 85, that era is going to be a little rough. Like, anyway, the movie ends with Hercule going back home and finally starting to pick up cases again, and to help people, kind of renewing his faith in humanity through this ordeal. I don't see how. I see how he believed in like the supernatural and the afterlife, because he saw the ghosts, and kind of like balancing the books in a way where it's like, this crazed woman who does this awful stuff getting her comeuppance. It's like seeing like the hand of God coming down to show like, there is justice in this world. Even if you don't see it right away, it does happen. It's just like the natural order of things. Good at the end will always prevail. It's just like a natural order. And you see like the goodness of this kid, and the people who going out his way to, look after his father, I guess. I can see why his faith in God is restored, but faith in humanity, that part is a little sketchy for me. It's like, what clear indications why you restored your faith in humanity? Like, what parts am I missing? I'm curious. But that's where the movie ends. Now, even though I did enjoy this film, and it's unfortunate I couldn't go to the theater to go see it, but it wasn't too long until eventually it came out on Hulu. That's where I finally watched it, when it first dropped. But many people point out, and I agree, that this movie does not know whether or not it wants to lean into the supernatural elements or not. And because normally this is just like a straight up murder mystery kind of thing, but you threw in this, I get it, is Halloween, and you're dealing with like a seance, of course, and based off the book, it's it has some supernatural elements to it, and of course they don't have, they took some liberties from what happened in the book, but it's just like, man, like, it's like Kenneth Branagh did not know whether or not, how much they should lean into the supernatural or not. It's like trying to have your cake and eat it too kind of situation. And I got mixed emotions about this. But it's still like a fine film, still a good murder mystery. And between the three films, I gotta say, Murder on the Orient Express is still the best one. A Haunting in Venice is probably like my second favorite, and Death on the Nile, while I have my enjoyment from it, out of the three, it's the least one. Maybe it's because the whole situation during COVID, while that movie was probably filming, or at least trying to be released, or something like that. It was like right at the tail end when the COVID was really starting to pop off, when this movie was about to wrap up. Uh, so it's yeah. But all three of these movies is really good. Like Kenneth Branagh, like I said, found his niche, just making some Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot films. Just like Ryan Johnson should be making Knives Out film, not for the rest of his life, but that should be like his bulk of his filmography, honestly. But yeah, like I enjoy these films. If they make another one, I'll be right there ready to watch it, because like this is like a thing that I will always enjoy. It's kind of like the whole John Wick stuff. Like, when they made a new one, I'm ready to go see it. Now the whole ballerina thing, I love Ana de Armas. She's incredible. She was like an amazing actor and an amazing human being. It's kind of like the same way I feel about Jenna Ortega. This is like a real person, and not one of these super sensitive like actors that take things way too seriously. Like, also Keanu Reeves is one of, like, those three are like my favorite kind of actors. Even outside of their job, they're just good people. Just like just having lost that human connection to themselves. You know what I mean? But anyway, I got another movie I want to get into. It'll be a little bit quicker. It's the movie Curse, starring Christina Ricci and Jesse Eisenberg. I've been wanting to talk about like a werewolf movie for a minute, so I look forward to that. And after that, I'll be covering the animated film Coraline. And no, I don't have any buttons for you guys. But anyway, look forward to that. I'll see you all soon. Peace.